I call this meeting of the Davenport Community School Board of Directors to order. Director Sherwood, would you please read our vision statement?
Mr. President, our vision is that Davenport to produce an education that challenges conventional thinking, prepares all students to compete in a global society, and inspires our students, parents, staff, and the community to answer the question, what if?
Thank you. Before our showcase, I wanted to note that none of our our student school board members are here. Most of them are at a rehearsal for the Davenport Community School District Holiday Concert, which is next Tuesday, December 3rd at the Vicki Ann Palmer Hall. And that's at 7 p.m. is a pre-concert, and at 7:30 is the concert next week. And you're all invited to that. Move on to the showcase, Superintendent Tate.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have the new SMART Intermediate School, and Cammie Swanson, the principal, will introduce the presentation. Thank you for being here.
I guess I would start by saying we are excited for this opportunity to have these minutes.
Cammie, would you use the microphone so we can get it recorded? Thank you.
We are excited to have this opportunity to have these 15 minutes to share some wonderful things with you. I'll tell you the hardest part of this was trying to narrow this down to 15 minutes. We have this list of things we want to talk about and we want to share and that we're so excited about. So we tried to condense it into 15 minutes. If we go too quickly through something, feel free to stop any of them, and I'm sure they'd love to expand a little bit. But I will start on what I feel is one of the most important things that we have done this school year that has really helped us open a lot of doors for ourselves. This summer, we spent some time redoing our whole master schedule at Smart Intermediate. Last year, we had 7 periods, and they were 48 minutes apiece. And this summer, after a lot of, this is probably the 1,030th copy of the schedule that we finally ended up with, but we were able to go to an 8-period day. We changed the class periods from 48 minutes to 43, but what we did was we added a core wheel into our day. If you can see that there, they get an extra trimester of reading, an extra trimester of math, and an extra trimester of Gateway to Technology. The great part about that is, in the past, we only had a certain percentage of our kids that were even able to take Gateway, and now every student that we have at SMART gets the opportunity to take the Gateway class. The students have gained about 9,213 additional minutes of reading, math, and technology. So that was one of the biggest pieces that we were excited about in going to the schedule, because they're gaining so much time in reading and math. The other thing that did for us is we were able to go back to team time. We haven't had team time in the intermediate, at SMART specifically, for many years, so it's nice to have those teachers. They meet once a week on their prep, and they're able to have those conversations, plan those RTI lessons, things like that they weren't able to do before because they have the same prep period now. Also, for the most part, we had teachers teaching 3 grade levels, 2 or 3 in the past, and now most of them are grade level pure. So if I'm an 8th grade math teacher, I have all the 8th grade students from math, and there's so many benefits to that also. We were also, last year we did RTI for math, and what we did was we went off the data team process, and all the students that were in that tier, that red tier, that lower tier that did not get the information, then they were pulled out for an additional instruction right on that standard. Now we also have that for reading. That, again, we're able to do that because we were able to free up some time going to that 8-period day. If I'm a student at SMART and I'm struggling in math, I not only get my math period, I get my extra trimester, I get RTI on a pull-out basis if I need it, but also for our lowest tier we offer VMath, which is it's a curriculum to help with all those deficits or those skills that they don't get. So they get potentially 4 different things in math if they need it. The other thing that was very beneficial for our special education department is we were able to add that resource time for those kids going to that 8-period day. Now they're able to pull them out based on their IEP goals and work on things like that. The class that was added, again, like I said, was the reading, the math, and the Gateway to Technology on the trimester. I'm fortunate enough to have all 3 of those teachers here with us today, so I will turn it over to Ms. Boyd, and she can talk to you about what her core math looks like.
Hi, I'm Keegan Math. I'm Keegan Boyd. I'm teaching math core. I have to say I absolutely love the program. I get to see all 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students. Last year I only taught 6th and 7th grade, so I'm excited to see those 8th graders continuing on in math and working with them. And I have taken the time to look up at I had the 8th graders first trimester, so now I have 7th graders. I looked at the 8th graders' scores from their first test, or the test last year that they took. So the 8th graders that are now freshmen, we looked at their scores. We looked at the scores of the 8th graders that just left my classroom. Looking at the percentage, they made a 24% growth from the testing scores last year to this year, and it's amazing to give them that extra time. I take the standard 4 quarters of material. I take 1 quarter of that material and teach it in my classroom, and that gives them 12 weeks to learn a typical 9-week course or amount of material. And the other teachers that are teaching that regular math classroom, they now have an additional quarter so that they can stretch everything out. So I've been able to deepen what I'm teaching. I've been able to create hands-on, like the 8th graders had a computer program that they were able to create a survey, ask the students in their classroom the survey, and then create something on the computer so they actually understand and they've created and had a purpose in what they're actually plotting on a graph or asking questions worth. So it's really created a more in-depth purpose for the math that we're teaching, and we have more time to teach it at the pace that the students need it. So it's been really beneficial seeing the students who do struggle actually make it to the proficiency range, whereas usually sometimes they still dabble on that red zone, yellow zone area. So it's been really wonderful seeing them. Ms. Leonard?
Hello, I'm Jackie Leonard, and I am the Gateway to Technology teacher, which is the middle school component of Project Lead the Way that has been enormously successful in our district. And last year, I only saw maybe a quarter of the students, but with this change in the schedule now, every student at SMART does receive the Gateway to Technology curriculum. 6th graders learn design and modeling. I have my 6th graders doing computer-aided drafting, and it's the same kind of program. It is the same kind of program, not a student version that adults use, and John Deere does use the actual program that I use with my 6th graders. 7th grade, the curriculum is green engineering. Basically, I tell our students that they are the ones that are going to be the engineers, and we just really need to have different ways to power our cars, power our buildings. 8th graders, it's really fun. We do robotics, so the students are doing robots, which then leads very much so into the high school program that Mr. Franzenberg has done such a good job with. We have the same robots that he uses. So I see in the years to come, they're going to do even more because they already have used the robots. One thing with the STEM in the Quad Cities, this program, I was the only teacher last year of Gateway to Technology, but now it is also in 2 other schools. I think a 3rd is starting, and I love teaching it, but I kind of said, well, the idea is to make engineers, and I don't know if maybe we're always going to get 4-year engineers out of our school, but I've learned that GTT is much more than that. We still are a very industrial area here. Trade schools, Scott Community College, I work very closely with them. Their vocational class has something like a 95% placement rate. So I stress to the students, you need to stay in school. 97% of careers need some kind of training, so you must get through high school, and the factories just don't hire you anymore. It's up to you then to go get some kind of technical training. So you need to train yourself as a welder, then John Deere will hire you. It's a much different world. So a big goal I have is to, I guess, get the students' feet wet and figure out what they may want to do in the future, keep them in school, and realize that the value of school is there, and then they're going to have to even make some more choices and commitments on their own after high school. Oops, sorry.
And I'm Linda Smithson. I teach the core reading component of the core wheel, and I've been teaching reading for probably 15 years in the district, and this is just been a huge change in the way that we teach reading at SMART. I've been able, like Ms. Boyd, to pull out 4 standards that I can concentrate on in my class. And the ones that we decided to pull out for my class are the ones that take more time. They're the ones about reading a novel and comparing it to other productions of that work. And when you're in a language arts class or even in a reading class, you don't really have the time to get into in depth like you do. And I have this 12 weeks to do it in. The really interesting thing to me, having taught reading for a long time in the district, is that I thought we were going to have to fight the kids. That they were going to have a language arts class, a reading class, and then they were going to come to me and be like, why would I have another reading class? That is not the way our kids are reacting to this at all. They absolutely love coming to core reading because we're doing things in a little bit different way. We try to look at things from a different point of view, and I'm really choosing things that are interesting to our kids to help get them interested in what they're reading, so it's not just the same thing that they're reading in their other classes. And we've really made it I work together with the kids. I give them some choices in the things that they do and what we choose to read, and they really have just taken to it. The 7th graders left me in November, and they come and see me every day after school. Do you like the 6th graders as much as us? Are we, what are you doing with them? Are you doing the same things as them? Because they're just going to love it. And it's really neat to see that reaction from middle school students in a reading class. And it's just been a joy and such an awesome change for our building.
So we've been focusing mainly on instruction and the different things that we provide, but the other thing that we are so fortunate to have is this year we can say right now that we have smart boards in every single classroom. I had a couple parents come to our parent night the other night and say, what are these big computers on your walls? Can we go see these and talk about these? So we took them into the rooms, and these are in every classroom. We said, yes, absolutely. So we ended up doing an impromptu kind of training with a few of the parents because they wanted to see what they were, because the kids are coming home and talking about them. So that's one thing that we're lucky to have. But the other thing that we're very lucky to have, we have Chromebooks in many of our classrooms. If we continue at the rate we're going, our goal is to be 1-to-1 next year, meaning every classroom will have a set of Chromebooks. We are a title building, so we're able to have those luxuries of, ordering a few more of those things. So those things have been very instrumental in the teaching, and we get nothing but positive feedback about those. So I do have a student here today to talk to you a little bit about how they use Chromebooks in their classrooms and how they've helped her. This is Claudia Morales.
Hi, my name is Claudia Morales. I'm here today to talk to you about the smart boards and Chromebooks in every single classroom. First off, with the smart boards, they're in every classroom, and they are eligible to do anything you want them to, as long as they they do anything you want. Sometimes they freeze, but that's okay. You can pull up anything. Next, Chromebooks. They are in every one of our classrooms. They do anything you want them to. If they shut down or turn off by themselves, they will automatically save, so that's good. And they have a Google Doc that you create, and you are able to share with your teachers and classmates. You are able to do the same work at the same time in every document that you want. And I'm done.
Nice job, Claudia. My name is Ben Driscoll, and I'm the associate principal down at Smart. And Claudia just came fresh from a basketball game, and so that's pretty impressive. She didn't even have time to change, and she's here, and she's, we figured you'd rather hear from the students that are actually benefiting from this. When Ms. Swanson and I started this year, we just kind of talked about, the new Smart. Smart was built in, a little Davenport history, 1918. So exactly. So it was built in 1918, and it's been around. The building's been around for a long time. We haven't been around quite as long as the building, so we just decided, what can we do? And we just want to kind of get a fresh feel and do some new things. So we went into the office and we said, let's make a whole new schedule. So we spent the whole summer doing that, and all the stuff that she talked about in the classroom. But more than that is we really wanted to just kind of change the culture of the building, and these are some things that we feel is kind of new in the culture of Smart. First of all, this is our second year of a PBIS school, Positive Behavior Interventions and Supports. And first year we introduced, and for those of you that are not familiar, it's kind of exactly what it sounds like, positive behaviors. And one of the many things that come out of PBIS is a quote that goes kind of like this. It says, when a student can't read, we teach. When they don't understand math, we teach. When they don't know how to behave, we punish. And that's so backwards. So one of the biggest concepts to PBIS is teaching behaviors and teaching what the students are expected and what the proper behaviors look like. So we do teach tos, and maybe ask some of these girls about that, and we do them in all of our classes. What does it look like to walk down the hall properly? What does it look like? What is a teach to the cafeteria? What is cafeteria behavior supposed to look like? Instead of waiting for it to go wrong and then just punishing, we teach to it. So that's one of the main things about PBIS. SOAR is an acronym that we kind of came up with, and it's kind of a play on the whole Smart Eagles, and it's that a smart student soars when they respect ourselves, when they respect each other, when they respect their adults, and when they respect their resources. So that is what SOAR is to us. Eagle Bucks is just kind of a paper economy that we pass out all the time. Got to the point where my kids at home, when they would do something, I would just out of habit reach to my pocket to hand them an Eagle Buck. And I went, oh my goodness. But we really do, we give Eagle Bucks all the time anytime we see somebody hold a door. Great job. I love the way you're doing that. I like the way you're walking down the hall. So Eagle Bucks is a big thing, and it's something where the students can use it to purchase. Ooh, did you have an Eagle Buck? Where'd you get that, Barbara? Ah, I thought Barbara might have that. That would have been impressive. But yeah, these are our Eagle Bucks, and everybody carries them in a little pouch, just like Miss Boyd had right there, and we just hand them out every other Friday. We have a SOAR store where they can come and they can purchase with their Eagle Bucks, whether it's Gatorade or a new planner if they happen to have lost it, or all kinds of different things. Time with Cammie, our facility dog, just all kinds of things that they can purchase with their Eagle Bucks. So that's a big part of it. That was all year one, though. Year two is what we've gone to this year. And one of the big things is point sheets. We, kind of like in the academic side, we have our students. We have Tier 1 students, which kind of is the majority of our students, then Tier 2 students, those ones who just aren't getting the teach twos. The behaviors are coming up more and more. And one of the interventions we are doing is a point sheet, and it's kind of tracking a student. They pick an adult, anyone in the building, that they really have a connection to. And we say, you know, who do you like to talk to, whether it's Miss Swanson or Miss Smithson or Miss Leonard or Miss Boyd. And we create a point sheet. What is the things you're working on? Like, man, I really have trouble staying in my seat in class. So whatever the specific needs of that student, and then they check in and check out with them at the beginning and end of each day. We send them home for their parents, and they earn rewards over time, even if that reward is, we have one going right now actually with Barbara's brother. If he can make it, then he's going to earn a basketball game, and he wants to play a basketball game against a certain teacher. So just those little things, and they just love it. They love spending time with the teachers and people like that. So that's what a point sheet and check-in, check-out is, and we are in year 2 of PBIS, and it really is changing the culture. Part of the whole PBIS thing was our facility dog, and if you haven't noticed, Miss Cammie Swanson and Miss Cammie Dog. So they have the same name. It was not planned. We came across Cammie the dog, and she was already named. She was trained very well. We couldn't change her name. We tried to convince Miss Swanson. She wouldn't do it. But she is an enormous part of our school. She's probably the most popular person in the school, or popular staff member, and she is in and out of all the classrooms. She's in the cafeteria. She's in the hall. She's in, I'm going to point here. She's in the classrooms, and it's a little bright there, but what it says is Cammie has been a good dog so far. When people get frustrated, some people go see Cammie the dog. Cammie's a good dog. Cammie likes us to pet the dog, thank you, lets us pet the dog. Facility dog in schools, they help people get unfrustrated. When they are sad, they go see Cammie, and that's from Araceli. And those are the two. Absolutely. Absolutely. So Cammie is a huge part of our building. School within a school was something, and you can see we're kind of jumping around, and we've probably gone over our 15 minutes, but you'll have to pull us off here. But school within a school is a big part. There's so many things we're excited about. Last year we agreed to and kind of jumped on piloting school within a school, and we're in year 2 right now. This is from a student, and she is in year 2 of school within a school. What it says is, teachers of school within a school, it looks better over here. They manage to help us when we're stuck on a problem. We have situations, and they help us solve them. There may be 2 teachers, but they go a long way. They help us get caught up when we miss a day. Why they help, no one knows, but they listen to our feelings when our minds let go. We have tough times, and they cope with our stress, but no matter what they give us, hope and success. And that's from a student that's in school within a school for year 2 right now. So it's another thing that we're just so excited about in our building, just kind of changing the overall culture. The last thing that I want to touch on, and then I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Miles there, is our bully procedure. She's going to come around. Everybody in this room knows that bullying is such a hot topic right now, and how are people dealing with bullying? You hear it again. My student's been bullied for years, and the schools haven't done anything about it. And we were worried about that, too. Although we have never ignored anything, we were worried about that very thing. What are we doing? We're talking, we're facilitating mediations between kids, but was it clean enough, and was it kind of organized enough? So we met with Ellen Riley from the district, and we said, we really want to do some extra things. What can we do? And she said, well, there is this thing that the Des Moines School District has done. Maybe it's something we should look into. So we've put together that flow chart that you have in front of us, in front of you right now. And basically what it is, and Barbara's going to talk about this in just a minute, is when a student has an issue, there is an actual procedure that they come and we presented this flow chart in more of a student-friendly form to every student in the building, and we talk about coming to the office, how we're going to mediate, who we're going to inform, putting together a safety plan, how we're going to offer to not only to the reporter, but if it turns out to be a founded case, how we're going to consequence, an actual documented safety plan, and all of this. Love to kind of go into it in depth. Don't think now is the appropriate time, but I wanted to show you that this is something that we have kind of organized, and we're having enormous success with it. And what I'd like to do is kind of hand it over to Barbara so she can talk to it more from a student standpoint.
Hi, my name is Barbara Miles. I'm a student from Smart Intermediate, and I'm talking to you about bullying procedures. When a student is bullied, they fill out a bullying report. You go to the office, or you can get it from a teacher. They fill it out, and you give it to an adult at our school, and they turn it into a staff member in the office. When they turn it in, the staff looks over at it. They will call you into the office. They'll talk to you about the problems, and then they'll call the other student that is bullying you, and they will talk to you at the same time. What I like about Smart and what they do when a student is being bullied is that they talk to you at the same time, so you can tell the bully what you don't like and how you feel about them bullying you.
Okay. Again, I think that brings us to the end of our presentation, and we apologize. It was kind of back and forth here and there, but we had this list that we had to condense in 15 minutes. So we hope that you're able to walk away with a few things that we're doing at Smart this year.
Are there any questions or comments? Director Sherwood.
First of all, I'd like to congratulate Claudia and Barbara. You guys did an excellent job representing your schools very well. And Barbara, I have a follow-up question for you. Have you been through this process yourself?
I actually have.
You have. And when they did the mediation, you said you liked the idea that they'd sit down together. Did you feel uncomfortable with that, or how did they make you comfortable with that?
I felt safe. Like, I felt confident in myself so that we could talk it out, in that I wish we had no more problems after that.
And it's your problem, your particular problem, cleared up?
Yes.
It has. That's very good. Thank you very much. And I'd like to ask anybody else on your PBIS, how do you do continuous staff development on this?
Good question. We go to the AEA about 3 times a year, and we have a whole PBIS team that we chose very strategically. We started the training 3 years ago, so we went through a whole year of training before we even implemented at the building level. Then we also go to those continuous trainings throughout the time. Right now we're being trained on Tier 3, so that next year we're ready to roll that out as a building.
Yeah, and on your grade structure, the way you've got things, you actually sound like you might be an intermediate school or middle school for a change. We don't have many of them around. How do you get your data team time in there along with the rest of this?
Good question. We have, what we do is we have data teams in the morning. So we have 2 teams meeting at one time. They their contact time starts at 8:15. Data team starts at 8:20, and they go through 9:05. What we do is we have advisory for the first 15 minutes of every day, and they're paired up. So we make sure that if somebody has data team on Tuesday, there's another teacher in that advisory class. So that's how we make it work in the mornings.
Super. And you have a lot of support here for kids that are struggling. What are you doing for kids that are advanced? Are those kids, how are you taking care of that as far as differentiating their needs?
Good question. Of course, we have the TAG program that we have, up and running, and they do a pull-out model to help those students that need that. But also, our big thing is that in the classroom instruction, how are they getting that every day? We, for example, for our reading programs in the past, we did the Scholastic model, Systems 44, Read 180, and then we adopted Expert 21, which is the proficient and advanced model for readers. So what, for example, like in our reading classrooms, in that actual classroom, they're able to differentiate using that curriculum. And a lot of it is they do research on the computer that automatically puts them at their level, that they do the research and things like that. So we try to do as much differentiation in the classroom before even the pull-out for the advanced students.
Super. Thank you very much.
Director Snyder.
Nice presentation, thank you. I've got a couple questions on the 8-class schedule that you guys have. If I heard you correctly, this is the first year that you've started that. I would like to hear from a teacher and one of the students, when you first heard about this program that it was going to either possibly happen or happen, what your absolute honest first impression was and what you think about it now.
Beings that, so again, I'm Keegan Boyd. Beings that I'm only a second-year teacher at SMART, I was really, really scared. Like, okay, are they going to cut my position? Are they going to keep me here? So that was my first gut instinct when they pulled me in and sat me down, Miss Swanson. They're like, okay, and our math coach came in and sat me down. They're like, okay, so here's what we're thinking for next year. And immediately my stomach just dropped. I'm like, oh my gosh, they're changing the system, so they're not going to need me next year. Am I going to have a job? Like, that was my first instinct is, what am I going to do next year if they cut my position? But it has completely turned around. We sat down. I was here all summer working with Alyssa Hansel, working on the curriculum. And then our math coach came in as well. We divvied up. We found what topics in each grade can I teach without it affecting what's being taught in the classroom. So not only did I had a hands-on everything, like Miss Swanson let me be hands-on, Alyssa let me come in and work over the summer with curriculum. I was able to decide what I was going to teach based off what would be the best needs. And okay, if I'm going to teach, so most of my classes I'm teaching geometry. Geometry is not something that has to be built up upon based off what they're teaching in the classroom. So it was easy to pull out, and I can teach at the beginning of the year, at the end of the year, wherever I happen to land with the 6th or 7th graders. And then the 8th graders, they're doing graphing and data analysis. So again, that's not something that they had to build up to get to. So it really turned out to work in the better. My position's still here. I'm still here standing in front of you, so it was really nice. And I think it was nice that they came and asked me before they just said, okay, here's the position. This is what you're doing next year. You have no choice. And they made sure that I was comfortable with working with all the different grades before they just shoved it at me.
So you would say that the school is in a better place now?
I think I talked to some of the kids today and said, what do you think about having 2 math classes? Is it overwhelming? And they said, no, we never, like, I try to work it out with the other math teachers. So like right now I'm with 7th grade. I talked to the other 7th grade teacher. What nights are you giving homework? I don't want to overload the kids. And you have 2 really big homework assignments to do tonight. They're both due tomorrow. So we really balance it out. It works out well, and I've planned and I've discussed with each teacher that I'm working with at the time to make sure that I'm not piling on more and more and more with the kids since they already do have a heavy class load.
Thank you. Yeah, I should have asked that. Assuming one of the students has had both.
I actually like the fact that we have 8 classes a day. We get more education. Even though Wednesdays we get out early, we still have 8 classes. We don't get advisory on Wednesdays because we get out early, but I like the fact that we have 8 periods a day.
What'd you think of it when you first heard about it? Before you knew anything about it?
I was a little scared. I don't know why, but I was a little scared until I met all my teachers, and they're really nice, and I like it now.
Good. Thank you.
Director Cromedy.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I want to thank Cammie and Ben for your leadership, your enthusiasm, teachers for your enthusiasm, and Barbara and Claudia. I'm I'm very impressed with your presentation. So thanks to all of you, and thanks for your innovations at SMART. SMART has kind of a tender place in my heart because that's where I started, and I only wish I was young enough to go back and work now because I see some really exciting things happening at SMART. So keep up the good work. Great job.
Director Kluhl.
Just a couple of things. Director Crumwoody kind of gave the thank you speech, so again, thank you for everybody. I can't do it any better. Claudia and Barbara, you two are most articulate, you know, for middle school people, and so I'm going to ask you an extemporaneous question, and either one of you can answer. That's going to be part of the test here. But the question is, what's the proper behavior in the lunchroom?
The proper behavior in the lunchroom is we have assigned tables, so there's no chaos going on. If you don't sit at that table, you might have silent lunch, not necessarily. We line up different times, so the line isn't as big as it would be if everybody lined up.
So sometimes you would have a silent lunch.
If you're running around and not doing what you're supposed to do.
Good lunchroom behavior was lacking, then you might have a silent lunch. Okay. Thank you. Another question on Chromebooks. I'm curious what kind of professional development you had before the Chromebooks came.
I will say that some were more fortunate than others. When we first rolled this all out, we had our first order placed at the beginning of one school year. So we paid people to come over the summer and do a whole week training. We had a specialist come in and did a whole week training on them. And that was about half of the people who have them now. The rest of them, we realized we were able to order in the middle of the year. So we said, do we wait or do we put them in the hands of the teachers and let them, you know, get used to them and things like that? Our math department said, I don't want them right now. They can't handle getting them without the professional development. We said, we completely understand. So we moved, you know, to some other departments instead. The only departments left that do not have them, we're finishing science right now, is math and exploratories. So, and they chose to be last. They just came the other day and said, okay, we've heard the amazing things. We want them now. So, like I said, the beginning portion of them did have a great training over the summer. The rest, we kind of put them in their hands this year, and what we do is staff development on Wednesdays. Our teacher librarian is going to continue to do some outside of the school day, and we're paying teachers to attend. And the Bucket Bites has been something that the district's doing, that they're attending and doing some things like that. So I will say half of them had a little bit more training than the others, but the big thing is we're having teachers teach teachers. So a lot of them that went to that training are helping. We're doing small mini sessions in our Wednesday staff developments where they go. And what we did is we took a list from our staff and said, what are the things you want to learn? And things that we wouldn't even have thought of, that then we're telling teachers that we know are doing that, and they're teaching other teachers. So I'd say that's where we're at right now.
One of the areas that we probably could use more help with is in supporting a larger IT staff. In terms of support, do you get technical support? Is it adequate? Is it timely? I'm just curious because I know that that's an area that we are short on, and as we start to move across the district to a one-to-one scenario, we're going to have more technical support. But at this time, do you feel like you're adequately supported aside from occasionally the smart board goes
That
blank?
freezes.
Yeah, goes down.
Yeah, I would say that we are. I think that is the conversation we have, though, moving forward. The more we get, for example, you know, we are wireless as a building, so we're lucky in that aspect also. But we just found out, you know, there are 2 classrooms that are not quite in the wireless range, so we have to buy another router, you know, wireless router for that. So that, you know, becomes, and then we have a few Chromebooks and smartboards that are now on their last part of their warranty. So that is our next part of the conversation, though. As these things start to happen, are we going to have enough support? So I would say up until this point, we definitely have. But moving forward, it might be a larger need the more that we have.
Good. Thank you very much.
Anything else? Director Sherwood.
Just, I should have asked this earlier. Did you 2 win?
They won one, lost one.
Yeah, not bad.
They did an awesome job.
Super. Thank you for playing.
Anything else? Director Kluhl.
Was Cammie going to bark or do anything?
all the time. She has a rough day.
She looks it. Very mellow.
All right. Well, thank you all for the presentation. Appreciate it very much. In order to conserve my voice a little bit, I'm going to ask the Vice President to read the communications section.
Thank you, Mr. President. Under Communications, November 28th and 29th, we are closed for Thanksgiving. December 2nd, 5:30 p.m., Committee of the Whole, ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. December 3rd, 3 p.m., Legislative Advocacy Committee, ASC Executive Boardroom. December the 4th, 4 p.m., Policy Committee, ASC Executive Boardroom. December the 9th, 7 p.m., regular meeting, ASC Jim Hester Boardroom. December the 17th, 7 p.m., Kimberly Center graduation at Galvin Fine Arts Center, St. Ambrose. December the 23rd through January 3rd is winter break. Open Forum is next. Open Forum is a time for members of the community to give input at a board meeting regarding school district issues or concerns. Individuals who want to speak should fill out an open forum request and give it to the board secretary prior to open forum. The board will not act on any issue presented during open forum if it was not published as an agenda item. The Iowa Open Meetings Law prohibits action on any issue that is not on the agenda. The president will set the amount of time allowed for individuals to speak during open forum. The board asks that no charges or complaints be made against individual employees of the district or community during open forum. Remarks that reflect negatively on the character or motives of any person will be called out of order. And tonight we have no open forum requests.
Thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda.
Mr. President,
Director Crumwoody.
I am going to ask that under item B, contracts, Allen Behavioral Consultants, that that item be removed and considered as a separate action item.
All right, thank you. Is there a motion for the consent agenda?
Mr. President,
Director Crumwoody.
I move the consent agenda as printed except for item B, contracts.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Call for the vote. Director Crumwoody?
Yes.
Director Sherwood?
Yes.
Director DeFow?
Yes.
Director Kluhl?
Yes.
Director Snyder?
Yes.
Director Dickman?
Yes.
My vote is yes. The motion carries. We'll move on to item B, the contracts for Allen Behavioral Consultants. May I have a motion? I need a motion to consider
Mr.
it.
President,
Director
I move
Crumwoody.
item B, contracts $25,001 to $50,000 for Allen Behavioral Consultants in the amount of $49,280, Allen Behavioral Consultants in the amount of $39,960.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Yes, Mr. President.
Director
The reason I
Crumedy.
asked that be removed, I would like Patty to explain what those contracts are about and what we're voting on, because I'm not clear.
Sure. What we have is we have two students in our district who have very significant needs, and they require the expertise and services beyond what our teaching staff is able to provide. And given the nature and the level of their needs, we have brought in outside consultants to work with training the staff in how to address and meet the needs of those students, with the intent that then we can remove those outside services and the team will be able to support the students in the classroom. and that's what both of those services are. We're projecting that those will be done by the end of this semester, and our staff will be trained in order to meet the needs of the students, the two students individually. Because of the unique needs and the multiple needs that the students have, we don't have necessarily many options available to us as to where those students can be served. And so we have to ensure that we can provide services for them within our schools. But they do provide very challenging needs to the extent of being non-communicative in one case, and in another case, unpredictable behaviors, and they're very intense. So we try to wrap as many services as we can around them in order to allow them to successfully remain in our schools. So they require a unique set beyond what our staff are able to support.
Do you have any additional questions?
I'll defer to our other.
Okay, Director DeFau.
You say you expect that the services will be concluded this semester,
Yes,
but this is a contract for a semester's worth of services.
right.
Have we in fact been receiving consulting services from Allen Behavioral?
Both of these students received services this past year, and so we had to maintain those services at the start of this school year as well. So these contracts are actually for this semester's worth of services. And actually will be, these amounts are inflated with the understanding that they could go this high, but our intent is that they'll both be actually completed this Friday with the services.
It seems as if we should have received these in August as opposed to November.
Yes, we had issues with the contracts, and we've been waiting on them to get returned with more information after I was here before, and we had talked about that in particular with another student. I requested them to become more detailed, so we've been waiting on these.
Director Snyder. Director Sherwood.
Now, I've been on the board just 2.5 years, but I remember quite a few of these sorts of things. About how many of these specialized things, and how much do we put out a year on this sort of thing?
Well, these two will be at about $50,000 to $60,000. We have actually pared back our outside consultation contract with the Tim Vollmer Behavior Services out of the University of Florida, which we've had in place for a number of years in the district. We've pared that back to right around $10,000. 4 years ago when I started, that contract exceeded over $100,000. With regard to these two students, knock on wood, but once we have these two contracts concluded and we're ready to serve these students at this time, we're not anticipating beyond our one large contract that we still have that will have the need for additional outside consultation. Now, I say that knowing that potentially something could happen tomorrow and we could get a challenging student that has very significant needs, but at this time we don't. So we have attempted strongly to pare back our outside consultant contracts significantly because we have now hired our own board-certified behavior analyst, which is very much a coup for us because they're hard to come by, and we've also hired an assistant board-certified analyst who's currently working on her board certification. So as long as we continue to build our own internal capacity, these will become less.
And what exactly is a behavioral tech? What's their level of education?
They're not board certified. They would typically be someone who has been trained under a behavior analyst, and so they provide the day-to-day services to the student and to the team. And then the behavior therapist would be someone that would come in and check in periodically.
Right.
So the tech would be the day-to-day support.
And the psychotherapist could be that could be Vera, that could be anybody.
Yeah, it's someone attached with them.
So I guess my point is that, and you say it's 50,000, but these contracts are for 90, and I know you said that's the maximum, but and you're hoping for less. But I would encourage you that it seems to me that this is the kind of capacity we should have internally. That with our extensive BD program with the issues that we're talking about at Whitmire and so forth. Having a behavioralist on staff makes perfect sense. Apparently, you've already taken care of that. And to provide the training for aides to be able to step into these kinds of positions makes perfect sense to help us reduce some of the impact of these costs. And a final
Absolutely.
question is, at what point don't we provide services for a child? At what point are they so disruptive to the educational process that we don't?
Well, our options are very limited in that regard because if we max out all of our capacity within our district to meet the needs of a student, then we're looking potentially at, on our continuum of options, we would go all the way to home instruction. And we do that when we have students with significant behavior needs that we need to provide those services in that fashion. We do that. But for students such as the two that I'm referring to here, because of the unique needs that they have and the multiple needs that they have, our options are very limited to the point that we potentially could be looking at residential placements. And if an IEP team gets to that point of having to make that sort of a decision, you're talking lots and lots of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars, or potentially with students such as this, if we would have to go to the extreme of providing a teacher for one student or two students, along with safety support in that classroom, you're talking a very large amount of money as well. So we don't have the option to say no. We're not going to serve the student. We have to serve all of our students. We just have to ratchet it up, and it becomes more expensive with the greater level of need that the students have.
And we have ways of so back billing, but there are programs in place to supplement for special needs kids that reach this level of
Yes.
need.
We can bill Medicaid, and we always ensure that we document our high cost or individualized costs, and after we reach the threshold of exceeding $38,000, then we can report that to the state and request compensation back, and we typically get a portion of that back. But our weightiest student, the one who garners the most weighting, which is a 3.74 student, only generates about $23,000. So in many cases, the funds that we receive for those students don't come close to the amount of money that it costs to serve them.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions or discussion? I've got a couple. Where is Allen Behavioral Consultants from?
Davenport, here in town.
When you said that if things if things change, you could, for instance, have to provide a teacher instead of providing a consultant. The consultant costs $560 a day. Is that less than what a teacher would cost?
An individualized teacher, we figure with salary and benefits, we average that out at about $80,000. And then to provide the additional support that would be one or two paraprofessionals, that would be about $25,000 to $27,000, I think, is what we figure for each of those positions. And then the other thing that we always have to be cognizant of is, do we have a space to do that? That's one thing that we've done in the past, but finding a location and a space to provide an independent classroom can be challenging for us as well. So it would still probably run us over six figures to do that.
When you were first talking about this, I thought what you said was that these people are acting as consultants to teach our people. Is that correct, or are these consultants actually participating with the students?
Well, the beauty of this type of consultant is we've had lots of consultants that come in, provide us advice, leave, and then say this is what you need to do. What we've appreciated about these particular services are that they stay and they provide on-site services and work directly hand over hand with the student and the staff, which has been why we've appreciated these so much. In many cases, you get consultants who come in, they give you their suggestions and ideas, they leave, they come back, and they check in. this is hand-to-hand support in the classroom, which has been wonderful because they not only can help in making appropriate decisions regarding the student and their individual behavior, but if we also have environmental issues such as the classroom, they're very good at helping us in changing that up as well. So they're there with us almost on a daily basis, or I'll say a weekly basis for sure, to help support us.
All right, any additional questions? Okay, thank you very much. Is there any additional discussion on the motion? If not, we'll call for the vote. Director Crumwitty,
Yes.
Director Snyder,
Yes.
Director Dickman,
Yes.
Director Kluhl,
Yes.
Director DeFau,
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
My vote is yes, motion carries. Thank you. I have a motion regarding approval of bills.
Mr. President,
Director Kluhl.
I move that the board approve the following resolution as recommended by the administration for the adoption of the bills from the bill listing period November 7th, 2013 through November 20th, 2013. Resolution as follows. Resolved that all claims presented to the board, having been duly certified as correct by the Secretary, reviewed by the administration and board members, and they are hereby audited and allowed as just claims and warrants drawn in the Treasury for the several amounts. Further resolved, the payment of claims and salaries be approved as presented with the following voided check, and that being check number 312303 payable to Patrick St. John in the amount of $204, and it was the wrong vendor.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Call for a vote. Director Kluhl,
Yes.
Director Dickman,
Yes.
Director Sherwood,
Yes.
Director Crumwitty,
Yes.
Director DeFau,
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
My vote is yes, motion carries. Superintendent report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do miss not having the students. They give us really good reports. I just want to mention one thing about SMART and their Chromebooks and the use of Google Docs. When you walk through that school, it is transformed as far as I can tell when you go in a classroom, because I have yet to see a student that was not fully engaged in their Chromebook. It's hard not to be engaged. We do understand as educators that feedback from the teacher to the student and from the student to the teacher is critical, and a teacher can actually sit in the back of the room and give feedback to their students remotely, or bring them back with him or her, because they are monitoring everything that's going on those Chromebooks. And again, I'm very, very impressed. We need to make sure the scores equal what we're seeing, but it's just a new world, and I would suggest maybe sometime running through and go any day, any time, you'll see it, and it's very dramatic. And that's my report, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Move on to other items requiring action. I have a motion regarding the agreement between the Davenport School District and Edison Learning, Inc.
Mr. President,
Director Crumwitty.
I move the administration's recommendation that the agreement between Davenport School District and Edison Learning, Inc., which terminates on June 30th, 2014, not be renewed. District leadership will begin work immediately with the school and Edison Learning to assure a smooth transition from a partner school to a Davenport Community School District school with significant wraparound services, which will provide a foundation for increased student success.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Dickman.
It is my understanding that we will be able to continue along with some of the curriculum that the teachers have been successfully implementing.
There's no reason they can't. The wraparound process would be to engage the entire school and to see what it is that they feel as being successful and how do we want to form the school for the next school year. So they seem to be impressed, but again, I don't want to We've talked to some people. I'd like to have the whole school join in that, but theoretically, yes, we could keep both of those curriculums.
Thank you.
Additional discussion. Director Sherwood.
Yeah, and I'm going to vote for this resolution, but I have a concern that the money we're saving, which is going, as far as I know now, a great deal of that for company profit, and that has always bothered me. The money we're saving, while we have a budget crisis that we're looking at, and we have to use probably part of this for in that direction. I would want to see this reinvested, a big hunk of this reinvested right in that building, making sure that all the ancillary support services that we can provide those kids, that we do that. So if we have some extra money savings from this contract, while part of it has to go toward the overall district budget issue, we have to make sure that the level of support for that very high poverty school is greater than our average school. And we've talked about this quite a bit. We can't continue to budget these schools as if they're all the same and staff them as if they're all the same. They're not the same. And this is a staff that has a great deal of unity right now. And I think that in part, at least this is my feeling, that they may not be aware of some of the terrific things that are going on in our other schools and what is available inside the Davenport system. And I think once they see some of those things, they'll become excited about that as well. But I do want to make sure that some of this money is used to maintain a high level of support for those kids. Thanks.
Additional discussion. Director DeFau.
I'll have to admit that I'm torn in making this decision. And a lot of that reason is due to the teachers, the parents, the administrators of that building who have come forward and spoke with such passion and conviction about their school and the program that's currently being implemented there. I'd have to say, though, that I think that's a new phenomena in terms of the history that I've experienced with Edison itself. You know, I think I mentioned a couple weeks ago that I felt like Edison was somewhat missing in action at certain junctures. And, you know, I do believe as well that there probably were decisions made in the past by the district that had bearing and impact on the implementation of that program, like I said, in the past. And you sometimes wonder if there would have been a different outcome had those choices been different. As Director Sherwood said, we are at a juncture where we do need to look not just at saving money, because it can't just be about dollars, it has to be about our students. I am encouraged by the presentation we heard today from SMART in that the district is allowing buildings to implement programming and provide resources to their students that are unique. You know, we're not providing cookie cutter education in our buildings. We are, in fact, you know, providing the resources that students need in unique ways. And, you know, I'm confident that with Ms. Pitt's leadership that, you know, we can provide the services these students need to be successful as well.
Director Snyder.
I too am torn on this. I would like some verification also to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly, that all of the staff that's in place there, the support staff, the teachers, will all remain in the building, and there is no insecurity of any job loss.
I can't assure you of that. The total savings from not going forward with the contract is $700,000. In order to keep the school harmless, meaning having the same staff, it would take $350,000. So if, in fact, the board decided that's the way you want to go, and it is an impact on the budget decision, then you could do that. But I wouldn't want to force the decision on the school that you're going to have exactly the same staff as you have right now. My druthers would be to meet with them and say, is this the right configuration from your school going forward, and not just saying, right now, that's the way it's going to be. You're going to keep every position, because I'm not completely convinced that they would want or need every position. They might, but I cannot say it. That's not part of the plan. My plan is to have a wraparound meeting, as I've had with other schools in this district, say, what do you need to go forward to be successful, and then let them put their own school together.
Director Kluhl.
Just want to express my appreciation for Principal Pitts, Edison, and staff who are here again tonight, as they have been through this process in the last years. We've looked closer at programs at Jefferson Edison. I've been to the school on numerous occasions this year and seen the kinds of things that go on in good schools. In 1999, this board said, look, we're struggling with Jefferson School, we need help. And so we hired Edison to come in and help us at that time. And we had some initial success, great success. We saw the numbers skyrocket first couple of years. But that didn't parlay into a long-term dynamic, unfortunately. So we're in a situation with funding accountability, trying to do more with less. And we've got a contract, and the contract reads that in terms of assessment of success, Edison Learning agrees that the board may measure success of the partnership school on the basis of student achievement and by measures of parents and student satisfaction. I have no doubt from what I've seen and read that parent and student and staff satisfaction is top-notch. It's where it's supposed to be. Unfortunately, the measures of success as determined by the contract, Appendix E, are not there. And so for myself, it becomes an issue of inability to meet the terms of the contract. Will we be able to do better? I don't know. But I think that it's incumbent on this district at this point to try, so I will concur with the superintendent's recommendation.
Director Cromedy.
Yes. I too want to thank the staff, especially the principal and her leadership, and all of you who spent so many hours coming to us and sharing with us your thoughts, your ideas. And I too have had the opportunity to visit your school, and I know there's great things going on at Jefferson, and I know there are many, many excellent teachers at Jefferson, so I commend you for that. I'm remembering, I believe it was last meeting or perhaps a meeting before, that Dr. Tate talked about private companies coming in and assisting school districts. And 15 years ago, we asked that happen with Edison and coming in, and it's been going on now for 15 years. I believe Dr. Tate indicated when a district does this sort of thing, it should be a temporary thing, not something that goes on and on forever. And I think it's time now that we're seeing in our district, as you saw tonight from SMART, many excellent things going on in our district. And I, as a board member, very much want Jefferson staff to be part of what's going on in the rest of our district. So I thank Edison for assisting us. I, too, as Director DeFaw has mentioned, I have been disappointed. I've been on this board now for 8 years, I believe. It wasn't until just the last couple of years that we really have received some information from Edison, and that has disappointed me. But I think being a part of the entire school district, I expect to see great things happen at Jefferson, and I know with that staff, great things will happen. So I want to thank you for your help to us, Edison, and I want to thank the staff for making the change. And I know our district is going to support you in staff development and bringing you up to par with the curriculum and what needs to be done. So thank you.
Anything additional? Director Sherwood?
Yeah, I just want to follow up on what Dr. Tate was saying. I absolutely agree with you that the staff at Jefferson should drive this process. I would hope that that would be a thoughtful process, that they wouldn't be required to come up with this too soon with the balance of the school year. But my main intention is that these funds not be obligated in other places until they make those decisions about what their needs are to as fully as possible meet the needs of their students. And I hope the board would agree with that, we have an opportunity here for them to look at new horizons, and we need to support that.
Director DeFau?
I know that Dr. Tate, in fact, recently attended a conference that discussed 90-90-90 schools, and perhaps that's a model for consideration as we would move forward.
Any additional? Director Dickman?
I also had the opportunity to tour the school, and I want to say thank you to all the staff. They were very helpful in explaining how they felt about the services, and this was very hard decision to make. I feel confident after meeting the staff that they are the driving force behind the great students' achievements that we've seen there, that they're young and motivated and really dedicated to their students. And I'm hopeful that we'll be able to make the transition and continue to do the best thing for the students.
Anything else? I want to say that as I've thought about this, and especially with the passion and the interest that the principal and the teachers and the staff have had, and in fact the community has had in this, that I hope that all of you understand the incredible support that the board has for the staff and the teachers and the students and the principal, and that this motion is really only about our contract with Edison, and that we have pledged our support here tonight to making sure that as we move forward, that this will be another successful school. I just wanted to validate that. With that, I'll ask for the vote. Director Sherwood?
Yes.
Director Crumwoody?
Yes.
Director Dickman?
Yes.
Director DeFau?
Yes.
Director Kluhl?
Yes.
Director Snyder?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. I have a motion regarding resolution to authorize the sale and issuance of school infrastructure sales services and use tax revenue bonds.
Mr. President,
Director Dickman.
I move that the board accept the administration's recommendation of the following resolutions to authorize the sale and issuance of school infrastructure sales services and tax revenue bonds, Series 2014. Now, therefore, it is resolved by the Board of Directors of the Davenport Community School District. Section 1, that the board authorizes the sale and issuance in the manner required by the law of 10,000 school infrastructure sales, service, and use tax revenue bonds, Series 2014.
10 million.
Oh, sorry, 10 million. Section 2, the secretary is authorized and directed to proceed on behalf of the school district with the sale and issuance of said bonds, to select a date for the sale thereof, to cause to be prepared such notice and sale information as may appear appropriate, to publish and distribute the same on behalf of the school district, and otherwise to take all action necessary to permit the sale of said bonds on a basis favorable to the school district and acceptable to this board.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
The
Director Snyder?
I want to verify with this that exactly what we're voting on. We are voting on approving the purchase of the bond and not the projects. At this point, that the projects will be open for further discussion at a later date. But right now, we're just securing the money.
Well, we provided the project list to make sure that they meet our revenue purpose statement, so the ones we've given you here do. We also have talked about the fact that the project list that we've given you are those that we know that we're pretty sure we can accomplish in the time frame that's indicated, and the projects listed here, again, are valid projects to be used for bonding. So the board always has the opportunity when we're looking at the facilities plan to make changes. I would say that certainly the most important ones are the 2014 bond projects because they start in the spring and summer. And then beyond that, we do move projects in and out. But you are correct. This isn't putting a stake in the ground that this is the only list that will be accepted. But again, we provided this as a typical list of the things which would be approved. The list we've given you, there's 4 categories. One is the 2014 bonded projects that we can start right away in the spring, summer. And then we have the regular SAVE. SAVE is the old lost state penny. It stands for, and I've had to ask this 3 times because it makes no sense to me, Secure and Advanced Vision for Education. So that's the state penny that we were getting. So you can see the projects that would be out of our normal SAVE, and then the 2015 projects, and then again the ones out of our normal SAVE. And what we are getting by this, as you can note, is a lot more technology that we couldn't normally afford. Some is infrastructure, those will be the bonded. The others hardware, and by bonding some things and moving some things off the normal SAVE list, we're able to certainly provide more hardware. So long-winded story to say, yes, this is flexible to a point, and we will be bringing back these projects as we normally do with the schedule of architecture and bidding and things of that nature.
Thank you. I just wanted to ensure that we have so many buildings out there that all of our buildings are getting the attention that they need, and make sure that money is being distributed, to those buildings that do need things.
Director Sherwood.
2 things. We're talking about $10 million here on this this resolution, and the list you provided to us are 11.3 and 11.3 roughly. Why is that?
It's a great question, and I've asked that, and I'll have the Chief Financial Officer talk about that.
First, these are estimates of the projects, and second, we have approximately a $16 million fund balance that we've carried forward from last year, and I'm sure that we'll be adding to that for this year. So whatever we go over the amount of revenue that comes in a year's time or through our our bond issuance, we will use fund balance to cover the difference.
All right, so whatever is over budget here, over the $10 million, you have money to cover.
Correct.
That's one question. Second question I have is, after the recent tornadoes in Illinois, which, as I remember, were in excess of 70 in one day, and rapid moving storms, I still don't see any protection for the kids at Kimberly Center here, or the students or staff there. Is that someplace in our vision, or are we just going to let these kids and staff out there to hang out in the wind, so to speak?
No, it's certainly not. It is not listed on here, but we have that under consideration. We do have a plan to move them in the event of an issue. If a tornado, or actually we go into effect at a tornado watch, we would move those students out of the building.
I appreciate that, Scott, but I think that this thing in Illinois was a good example of that they didn't have a lot of reaction time there. And I'm not even sure they had a watch out when that happened. It's something I'd be interested in seeing. I think that the possible, horrendous results of not, I've been talking about this for 20 years, so you excuse me if I sound a little impatient with this, but we're going to see increasing weather events, more severe weather events, and At some point, we have to get serious about taking care of those kids at that building.
Sorry, Director DeFau.
I'd reiterate Director Sherwood's concern, and as I recall, one of the primary purposes we'd identified for these funds was at first safety and security foremost in terms of making our buildings secure. I do see that as lacking in terms of the absence of that project in this plan. And I'm going to say it again. We are investing $26 million into Central High School. And there are another $1.6 million in projects on this list when there are other buildings in this district that have not been touched in years. I really think that we need to give thoughtful consideration to what equity means, especially when no other building in this district is going to have or will have or has had the amount of money invested in it as Central. So I have serious reservations about voting for this motion and having anybody believe that I think that this is a finished product in terms of the project list.
Additional discussion. Director Dickman.
Something that we've recently started discussing about is the use of renewables for utilities, things like that. That's something that I would like to see getting added to the out years. Also, maybe I'm missing it, but the lockers at North, I hear complaints about that all the time. And I think that's something that, like with the equity of buildings, that some of the other directors have mentioned, that if we're really trying to make all our high schools equal, then it'd be really nice if they had lockers big enough to fit their books in them.
Additional discussion. I think that we've had a little bit of discussion about the long-range plan and the methodology that was used originally several years ago in developing these priorities. And I have sensed in the last year some of these possible changing priorities and possible changing in methodologies. So it is something we can take up. In the past, basically what we did was we said, schools, what do you want? And the schools responded and said, well, I want this, I want that. And they found ways to express their priorities. I believe that rarely were priorities expressed on a district-wide basis. So this is something, acknowledging some of this discussion, that we may be able to take up soon with respect to prioritization of the projects. The vote, of course, tonight is just on the bonding, and if we do accept this motion, or if we authorize it, that will move forward in spite of the prioritization that's been given to us. So I just want to make sure that's clear. Is there any other discussion? We'll call for the vote. Director Dickman.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Crumwoody.
Yes.
Director DeFau.
Yes.
Director Kluhl.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. May I have a motion regarding teacher negotiation team?
Mr. President,
Director Kluhl.
I move that the board approve the administration's recommendation for the following negotiation team members for DEA teacher contract negotiations. Marcia Tangen, Chief Financial Officer; Robert Scott, Executive Director; Steve Millenhausen, Principal, Madison School; Cammie Swanson, Principal, Smart Intermediate School; Scott McKissick, Principal, Central High School; Deb Miller, Director of Human Resources; Jamie Kroger. James Kroger? Is this spelling right? Okay. Jamie Kroger, HR Specialist, and James Hanks, Ehlers Law Firm.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Director Sherwood.
Are a board member, is a board member going to be added to this at some point?
There's no intent for a board member to be added to that list at some point.
Have we traditionally had a board member on this negotiating team?
No, we have not.
We've not?
We had a board member on the negotiating team. There was one board member for a period of time, but it has not been general practice.
And Larry was on there, is that correct?
That's correct.
And why was that a good idea and it isn't a good idea now?
I can't tell you exactly why it was a good idea at the time, but it has never been the practice for a board member to be, Director DeFau.
I don't believe that he was ever named as an official member of the negotiating team. I know that he participated in an observatory function, but he never actively participated in negotiations, to my knowledge. And he was here, but I think he may have left, so otherwise we could have asked him directly. But I know he wasn't a voted member of the teams.
So everybody's, I'm fairly new to this. Everyone here is comfortable with the way this is structured? Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Call for the vote. Director Kluhl.
Yes.
Director Snyder.
Yes.
Director Dickman.
Yes.
Director Sherwood.
Yes.
Director Crumwitty.
Yes.
Director DeFau.
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Move on to policy review. Director DeFau.
Prior to making a motion, I'd like to get some indication as to whether or not it's appropriate to make a singular motion or whether the board would prefer to have each policy presented individually. Director Kluhl?
Single motion would be fine with me.
Okay, well, with that, then I'll begin. Mr. President, I move that the board approve policy 60201, program goals and objectives, as presented at the last board meeting.
Oh, I thought, you said separate.
I believe he said separate.
Single motion.
Oh,
yeah,
a
that's
single
what-
motion.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't understand
sorry.
that.
Okay,
All right.
that's
I
why
thought you meant.
I was a little confused.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to make you go through that.
Well, I'll rephrase my motion then.
Okay,
Mr.
thank you.
President, I
Director
move that the
DeFau.
board approve the policy committee's recommendation and accept the following policies as presented at the board meeting on November 12, 2013. 60201, program goals and objectives. 60403, use of information resources. 502.16, administration of medication to students. 602.16, student home construction remodeling program, which is recommended for deletion. 602.20, United States flag. 603.02, study trips. And 604.02, school library.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Director Kluhl.
Just a curiosity why we changed field trips to study trips.
It's the jargon du jour.
That's what I was afraid of.
I had that conversation earlier.
Yeah, we asked ourselves, and we were told that that is the proper terminology.
Any other discussion? Director Snyder.
I just wanted to clarify for the public, because I saw a few eyes light up, on 60216, Student Home Construction Remodel Program. It's the deletion of the policy, not the program.
Correct, and I appreciate that clarification, Director Snyder.
Director Sherwood.
No, I was going to make the same thing.
Okay, great. Any other discussion? Director Kluhl.
Just one other anomaly, I thought, in policy 502.16, students. The first sentence reads, by law, students with allergic reactions or other airway constricting diseases may self-administer their medication upon written consent of the parents and the prescribing physician, regardless of competency. The way that sentence is written, it says whether or not the doctor is competent or not, the student may be allowed
That's
to
true.
self-prescribe. It just, now, I don't know if that was written by an attorney, because I know personally that some things written by attorneys recently we've reviewed on the board are rather ambiguous and deceiving. But it's an anomaly, and perhaps it can stay an anomaly, but I think we should be proud of our policy. I'm not particularly proud of what I'm seeing there in incompetent doctors being allowed to prescribe self-medication on behalf of students.
Well, we can do one of two things. We can remove it from the action item, or we can amend the policy to read, by law, students with allergic reactions or other airway constricting diseases, regardless of competency, but then the disease may be incompetent, may self-administer their medication upon written consent, etc.
I have problems with incompetent students, too. The whole incompetence thing throws me off.
But I think that I do think it's a legal definition, and what it allows is for the student to be able to utilize that. There's no standard that for somebody to say, a nurse or somebody else in the building, oh, you're not old enough, I don't trust that you'll be able to do it properly, you have to prove to me that you can do it correctly. These are life-threatening circumstances where they need immediate access to that medication. So if you would like further clarification as to why that phrase is included, we certainly can remove it, the policy, from the action.
If we could get some clarification on that, that would please me. If we could amend that motion then to delete policy number 502.16 upon further action by the policy committee.
Is there a second to the amendment?
Second.
Is there any discussion on the amendment? I'll call for the vote. Director Kluhl?
Yes.
Director Dickman?
Yes.
Director DeFau?
Yes.
Director Snyder?
Yes.
Director Sherwood?
Yes.
Director Crumwitty?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. On the amendment to remove 502.16 from the original motion, which is the rest of the policies as originally written. Is there any other discussion on the motion? Call for the vote. Director DeFau?
Yes.
Director Sherwood?
Yes.
Director Kluhl?
Yes.
Director Snyder?
Yes.
Director Dickman?
Yes.
Director Crumwitty?
Yes.
My vote is yes. Motion carries. Thank you. Move on to discussion items. First discussion item is the superintendent recommendation on the Wittenmeyer contract.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I'd like to review the contract itself and what it says. During my discussion, I'm going to use the word Wittenmeyer for Wittenmeyer Learning Center and Davenport for Davenport Community School District. The current contract agreement is good between July 1st, 2013 and June 30th, 2014. The contract indicates that we must provide written notice no later than December 1st, 2013 to renew or to terminate the contract with Family Resources. Through verbal agreement with the Family Resources President and CEO, we have until December 10th to provide the written notification, and hence tonight is my recommendation. And then the Agenda Committee has set December 9th regular meeting for your decision. The purpose of the contract is for Family Resources to provide education programming for community day program and also a residential program for students residing in Wittenmeyer. The provisions of the contract says that Davenport provides a curriculum, textbook, and curriculum materials. Wittenmeyer and Davenport exchange coordinating liaisons for the program, meaning people that coordinate with one another. Our staff development, that is Davenport's, is provided to the Wittenmeyer staff. And, quote, students will be considered for all purposes to be enrolled in Davenport and shall be subject to all policies and procedures, close quote. Students attending Wittenmeyer's residential students will either attend Wittenmeyer or Davenport schools is mutually determined by the two entities. Special education resident students will have an IEP team formed and determine the appropriate placements and services for those students. And community day students from other districts must be approved by Davenport prior to being enrolled. And realizing that we do have students as resident students which are assigned there by the court, and they're from other districts, but as soon as they come into our city and reside here, then they do become our students. As far as staffing goes, Wittenmeyer will employ staff who are qualified according to our standards, but will be for all purposes employees of Family Resources. And Davenport may participate in interviewing and hiring of teachers and staff at Wittenmeyer. This is my proposal, that we do not renew the contract with Family Resources, that we move the education operation to a Davenport facility yet to be identified, that we combine the Kimberly Center West High School Behavioral Program with the current Wittenmeyer program, that the combined program will have a much different configuration of staffing than found currently at Wittenmeyer. The difference I've shown you on a sheet of paper which I've shared with Wittenmeyer indicates an additional staff of 11.75 full-time equivalents. Now, more staff is added, but there are more students. For example, right now we have 15 students in the Kimberly Center West program, and we're talking about taking all the students from our current Wittenmeyer program and adding our Kimberly Center West. The staff will include a certified principal and assistant principal, and there'll be 2 crisis interventionists, which will be certified teacher positions. We'll have a half-time nurse and a half-time health para on site. The model will be heavy on classroom teachers and paraprofessionals. It's a little bit different than the situation that you see currently at Wittenmeyer, and again, that certainly can change year by year, but using the same configuration of students as they now have, that will be our recommendation for starting next year. Also included will be the full backing, leadership, monitoring support of the district, and we can leverage for that the entire district in any of the facilities or the resources that we need. Additionally, we're in conversation with the AEA, Vera French, Lutheran Services, the juvenile court system, and our police liaison to also be on call and be firm backing for the program if we decide not to contract with Wittenmeyer. We looked at the staffing ratios of students to teachers, and I provided you another chart. And we did it looking at what if we took all the staff, what if we took the instructional staff, and what if we took the instructional and support staff. And for example, if we look at all the staff, Wittenmeyer's current ratio is 2.68 students to 1, and ours next year would be 2.42 to 1 using our plan. If you just look at the instructional staff alone, those in the classroom, Wittenmeyer's is 3.78 currently, and ours would be 2.96 students per staff. And we looked at the instructional and support staff alone. Wittenmeyer has a 2.83, and we would have a 2.85. Not a huge appreciable difference, but again, it shows that we will at least have the same or smaller students to staff ratios. Now, what about savings? We entered looking at our contract 2 years ago, wondering if we could have some savings in the contract. And using the plan that we've put together, which is an increase of almost 12 additional people, there would be a saving to the general fund of $73,550 and to special education funds of $234,555. In the scheme of things, the general fund savings would really just constitute a contingency fund and isn't a matter of what I would bring to you as a huge budget savings to the general fund. Now, why the rationale for the change? The students, whether they live in Davenport or are temporarily assigned to the residential facility by the courts, are our students. They're our responsibility, and that responsibility must only be shared as a last resort. When we have the responsibility to educate students, we must be able to provide direct leadership to ensure that they receive all the support and nurturing possible. Responsibility must come with the authority to act. Working through a third party who is contracted to provide a nurturing, educational, and therapeutic environment for a challenging student is a recipe for frustration to proactive leaders. The mental health crisis in our nation is present in our school systems. The need to help begins in the elementary schools and extends through graduation. Our district needs to have a firm and positive grip on the problems and the solution for a continuum of needs displayed by our students. We should not contract out those challenges when we know that we have the capabilities to handle the situation right here in the district. Even though the contract calls for a high level of cooperation and sharing between Family Resources and Davenport, these are two organizations with different missions, motivations, resources, and funding. Regardless of how much desire there is to act as one for the good of the students, there is a separation and a divide. Sending a student to Whitmire is still sending a student away from our district continuum of services, which range from the general classroom to self-contained settings. I admire and respect what Family Resources has provided for Davenport over many years. Their services have been monumental and quite possibly life-saving. It is the opinion of the district leadership, after much careful thought over a 2-year period, that it will be the best interest of the students in the district if we lead and manage the program for all of our challenged behavior students. We are able and prepared to take and care for our own students.
Is there any discussion? Director DeFau.
The students that we're referring to are students that we have currently determined we're unable to provide services for in the district. Hence, that's why we've placed them at Whitmire. What programmatic changes are going to occur to change that?
Well, we've decided we can't in our current school setting, in our classroom settings. We're talking about taking them to one location and having these staff members, these 62 well-qualified staff members there for one purpose, and that is to serve their individual needs. So, yes, we have determined we just can't do it in our school setting. We need to go to another setting and hopefully return them. It is not a sentence. It's to take them there, work on the issues, and send them back, and hopefully they'll be successful in the schools.
As a follow-up, in looking at the staffing ratio, I'd be interested in some more information regarding the reduction of counseling staff. And the Whitmire model has 2.0 FTEs, and our model has 0.5. And is it the assertion that the crisis interventionists, paras, will have greater training than the behavior specialists and additional counselors at Whitmire? Just in looking at numbers, it seems as if there are less resources for students in our model than the Whitmire model.
I wouldn't want to compare the training of paras, but in counselors, remember we have a myriad of counselors in all our schools that we can turn to and would turn to. And when I was talking to Patty Pace Tracy today about this particular issue, I mean, the counselor that should go over there and service a student is the counselor where they started, whichever school it might be. So the good thing about being attached to the district, we have counselors at our behest, and we know that we can call upon them to go over and assist. So this is only the on-site counseling person that we have, but we can turn to a large number of counselors.
And that works well when you can be planful, but knowing that there are opportunities for things to escalate very rapidly in that learning environment. You may not always have the flexibility to, make an appointment to schedule somebody to come in. I mean, there definitely are going to be times where there's an immediate need, and with a 0.5 counselor, what do we do?
Well, that immediate need is met by the crisis interventionists. These are certified teachers, so counseling is counseling. You're right. When you're talking about an immediate need, that's why that we have put those that would be certified. One of them is board certified, And so we can meet those needs because it's got to be done right then. Counseling is more, as you said, Art needs some help. Are you able to come over next Tuesday because he needs some work? So I agree with you, but I think we're set to take care of that.
That's all I have at the moment.
Director Snyder.
I just have one question. Right now, Family Resources has one FTE for a behavior specialist, and I don't see anything for a behavior specialist on our plan. How would that be made up to account for that?
Patty, would you come forward and just remind us what the behavior specialist training is there, and then we can ask that question.
Would you mind repeating your question again?
I see Family Resources structure right now has one FTE for a position entitled Behavior Specialist, and we do not have anything like that in our model that we're looking at, and I'm just curious to exactly, as Dr. Tate said, what exactly does a behavior specialist do, and how would we be making up for that in our model?
Okay, that's a good question. We could have called our crisis interventionist behavior specialists. We call them crisis interventionists, and it's a consistent term that we have across all of our behavior programs in the district. But those positions that we have are actually special ed certified Strat 2 learning disabilities, behavior disorder endorsed teachers. It's my understanding in that particular position, it is a staff member who has a bachelor's degree in psychology. So in that regard, they're a little bit different as far as their endorsements go. We call them crisis interventionists, but they truly will be, along with our crisis interventionist paras, our first line of defense for any students who need to have behavior support. So they would be acting in basically that same capacity.
Okay, because in their model, they also have 2 FTEs for a crisis interventionist. Is that, are you saying the crisis interventionists that we have would differ from what they currently have?
Yes, their crisis interventionists, from when we checked with them, are para level, like paraprofessional level. Our crisis interventionists are certified teachers.
Okay.
And then we have crisis interventionist paras in addition to that.
Okay, thank you.
Director Kluhl.
Yeah, a couple of things. Just to note, I took a tour of the facility last week. They have just recently hired another behavior specialist, so that will be 2 now, just for the record. My question is the residency program, the resident program. What happens to those students in the resident program?
Well, presumably, if they're going to continue to run it, they are our students, so that we will then go pick them up and bring them over to our facility for education. Now, they also have a lockup. I don't know if you're thinking about that, but the lockup instruction would have to be done on site, quite obviously. But a residential student would just be they live at Whitmire. Our job is to go pick them up and bring them to our facility and educate them.
Hypothesis, what if Whitmire was no longer able to provide that service? Where would those resident students reside?
That I don't know. I'm not that familiar with the residential programs in the region, and I just couldn't tell you that. I don't know if, Pat, if you have a feeling.
There are a number of different facilities around the state, and so those students, just as students get placed here at the Wittenmeyer facility from around the state, our students would get placed at other locations around the state.
I had some information and discussion with them, and they seemed to indicate to me that if they were adjudicated in Scott County, they would have to reside in Scott County. Does that sound?
I would not be aware of that. I can speak to the fact that we have students who are placed right now. Typically, there are special education students, and if they go through the court system, we have students that are placed that are our Davenport students that are placed throughout the state, and we get notified of that. But I can't answer that specific question. That would be new information for me.
Did you have anything additional?
No, that's fine.
Director DeFau.
This isn't for Patty necessarily, but for Dr. Tate. When you're looking at the cost comparison, is the staffing for the Leslie West locked facility factored into this, or is this cost savings only based on our community students?
This included instruction for the locked facility, of course, no management of the students, but yes, it does include providing instruction for them.
And transportation of the residential students, because I can't see them getting on an unsupervised school bus with a bus driver and being transported to a building. I just don't think that's going to be feasible.
Well, we transport some now to our school building, so, I mean, that's our responsibility to make sure it's safe transport. But we do that now, and that is included in our thought process.
Okay.
Director Sherwood.
Could you tell me, our counselors, of course, are people who are trained not just to schedule students, which .5, that's all they'd have time to do is schedule students. They're also qualified to counsel kids for emotional issues and those sorts of things. What are their two full-time counselors qualified to do?
My understanding is that they refer to them as master's level counselors, so my presumption is that they're the guidance counselors that are endorsed the same way that our guidance counselors are.
Right, so these people, at two full-time people, these people are doing a lot of counseling, not just scheduling kids. So it looks like we're reducing that capacity quite a lot in having available counselors available to these kids when we cut that to .5.
Dr. Tate had mentioned the additional relationships that we'll be pursuing, and he had mentioned one of those would be the AEA, and he mentioned a number of other facilities that we would like to partner with in that capacity to assist us with the counseling component. In addition, I'd like to also say that we're looking to bring training back to provide a very structured classroom management system, not only to this facility if we take it over, but to all of our special education classrooms in the district, which is Boys Town, which is based on applied behavior analysis, which we do much with in all of our behavior programs. So we would also ensure that we have that kind of a structure in place for classroom management as well.
And again, one of the reasons I support Whitmire is because it is a therapeutic environment when we weaken this, and it's nice that we have plans for making relationships, but those aren't in place. And so as far as I can see now, currently, this is a weaker system as far as the therapeutic component than what they have. Also, they have access on campus over there, I believe, to nursing services over there, which isn't listed. Is that correct?
That's a great question, and we followed up with that actually today, and we were informed that they do not have nursing services at the school, that they do have staff trained in the medication administration, but they don't have nursing services on site at the school.
Okay, I thought they used to have access.
And if I could just a second, Bill, I'd also like to just mention that you mentioned the therapeutic model. We've noted as well that we do provide crisis, excuse me, nonviolent crisis prevention intervention as our de-escalation techniques in working with students, and that also does come with a trauma-informed care piece and component to it, which will be ensuring and including for training for all of the staff that would be providing services.
And this population that we're talking about are very prone to drug overdose and that sort of thing, and I'm surprised they haven't got anybody on staff to deal with that immediately. In fact, that's a little scary to me that they don't have that. But I would be much more comfortable with a full-time nurse there, and I would a health para as part-time, just because I've seen too many of those up close and personal, and having a professional there that knows what to deal with those is a big deal. So I'm a little skeptical of that .5 para. Thank you. Oh, one last question. Now, you talked about dealing with Lutheran Social Services and so forth, and one of the young lady that presented to us with Whitmire was talking about family therapy that her family is involved in. She lived at Anchorage? Bridge House. Anchorage is guys, isn't it? That's right. Lived at Bridge House. But what is our plan for providing these wraparound services for that sort of thing?
That's a great question, and we've actually talked about that and the importance of ensuring that we do have a plan in place to help support that. So that will be part of our overall plans for the facility and ensuring that we're making those wraparound connections with community providers. Well, we'll work on that, yes. You bet.
Director Crumity.
Well, a couple of my concerns have been talked about. I am concerned about the consular ratio, and I would hope we would take another look at that.
Okay.
Bill just mentioned the family wraparound services. I too remember that conversation and the young lady talking about that and how important that was to her. Under the family resource model, they had curriculum and instruction specialists. Who is going to be carrying out that responsibility if the district takes that program over?
That's a good question. My department would support and assist with that because we do, for our special education students, in many cases provide much of that curriculum, and so we would of course be the support for that. In addition, our curriculum and instruction department would help us in assisting with all of that to ensure that we have the core curriculum accessible to all of the students. So between our two departments, we would assist and support that.
Okay. My last question is, and I brought this up at the last meeting, I believe, the principal and assistant principal, and you've indicated that you would like to have them certified in educational administration, which they would have to be to have those positions. My concern is, would we not require any background in special education for either of those positions?
My preference would be, I would love that. I think that's a discussion at a district administration level we would want to talk about if that would be a priority or not. Preference, personal preference, yes, I'm biased that way. But the one thing that I want to be cautious about is right now our current makeup is about a 50-50 split between general education and special education students. So I think further discussion we could have regarding that. But we do have about a 50-50 balance with our student population now.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? Superintendent Tate, do you have any other remarks?
No, I would just like to remind everybody that if in fact this comes to fruition, it's the full backing and support of the district will take care of this program just like we do any school or any program, and that includes my interest and support.
All right, thank you very much. Move on to the discussion establishing an ad hoc board committee on K-8 schools. This is a request from one of the board members. In fact, Director Sherwood has talked about this for some time. And Director Sherwood, I would ask for you to open that discussion.
Yes, sir. We have in front of us a enormous task of trying to cut, and we don't know, we haven't been given a figure yet, but I'm assuming between $3 and $4 million of permanent cuts. And although we've seen some headway in some of those things, we haven't come close to the kinds of things that we need to do, big ticket items that we need. And I believe that it's possible that doing a transition to K-8s in the district, partial or whole, could give us cuts in that range that we could take forward. And I've done a lot of reading on this, I don't see anything else that I can imagine that we could do that would come close to that without cutting into the real meat of our everyday operations, of class size, of things like the block, all those things that we'd rather not do, and that would begin to directly impact on the achievement of kids. I don't think that K-8s would do that, but I do think they'd offer us the opportunity to make these sorts of cuts. So, and that may be completely misguided, but a lot of districts across the country are doing exactly that for very similar reasons. There also are academic reasons to go to K-8s. They are superior in some ways to intermediates and middle schools, and have their own good talking points. Dr. Tates even said that he likes K-8s. So I would like us to thoughtfully study this and as one possibility. And if anybody else on the board or the district or the community has other ideas, things we should be looking at, then by golly, we should be looking at this. But what I don't want to do is get to the last minute and not having thoughtfully looked at every possibility. And take 10 minutes and go on the internet and search this, because you'll find out what I find out, that this is happening all over the country. As I said, my niece in California has just now entered a brand new K-8 program in her district, and my other niece in Colorado, same deal. So I would hope that the board would establish this working group and that we could take a look at it closely.
Director DeFau.
I'm not averse to considering the model. I don't know that it warrants an ad hoc board committee. The majority of the legwork, the research, I think that would be done by district staff, as opposed to board members. And in my experience, especially a decision of that magnitude, or even a recommendation of that magnitude, I don't know what 3 board members you pick and what 4 would be willing to sit on the sidelines and not express an opinion till the end, just in my own personal experience.
No, we got a better idea for a structure.
So,
Wide open.
You're right, we need to thoughtfully consider. I don't think that a decision that significant could be made and implemented to impact the next budget year either. I think it's something that we would have to give more thought and consideration to in terms of implications for curriculum, staffing, buildings, etc.
Additional discussion. Director Kluhl.
Well, it's kind of like PBI for school boards. Instead of thinking, oh dear, here's an opportunity to look at, well, what could we do that would enhance education but possibly reduce our costs? So I would certainly appreciate any information that would help us in that regard. I mean, I anecdotally like the ideas of K through 8, but I have no idea whether they would in any way help us through our current financial straits. But I'd like to hear.
Director Cromedy.
I certainly wouldn't be opposed. In fact, I would welcome the idea of, I think not just with the K-8 structure, but I think we need to begin to have more conversations about other kinds of structures. And I mentioned this, I believe, when we were working on our goals. Most of our programs pretty much look alike across the districts, the way we staff our schools and so forth. Maybe we need to have a conversation with not just K-8, but what kind of structures would best meet the needs of all of our students. So I would certainly encourage us to take a look at that, have conversations about it. I know, Bill, you've done a lot of research with K-8s. We often talk about it at the board table about, well, maybe K-8s is a possibility, but, can we go look at K-8s? So what are districts doing with K-8s? Are they making progress with student achievement? What's going on? I would be opposed of just sitting down and reading the research. I would like to see it. I'd like to get out there. I'd like to have conversations with the leaders in those buildings. I'd like to have conversations with the teachers and to see if it's really making a difference. I would hope we would not just go to a K-8 structure to save money, but we want to adopt structures in this district that are creative. I think we all just heard that this past week in Des Moines, that not only do students need to be more creative, but boards of education also need to be more creative in how we structure our districts. So I would certainly be open to it.
Additional discussion.
There's Adam.
Adam.
Hi. Okay. So thinking about this, if I understand from Director DeFau's comment, an ad hoc board would be three school board members who discuss it, or whatever it sounded like. I would like to recommend that the board does not ignore the students in this case. I definitely think students could have a lot of opinions on this about what they would feel like attending a K-8 school. I definitely think other structures that I just came off the top of my head, other combinations of school grades and school areas, would definitely affect the students, and so I would highly recommend getting their opinions on it. The students also want to make the school district better, and I feel if you give them the chance, they may surprise you by what we come up with.
Any additional discussion? Director Dickman.
Considering the possibility of also having a community input night like we did for the block scheduling and the start date, just something to be able to gather more community input.
Anything else? Director DeFau.
As long as those two opportunities occur at a later date and not prematurely, I don't want any group to think that, we're on the eve of making this decision to radically alter our curriculum and how we deliver it based upon this proposal, which is really where we're at this point.
Director Sherwood.
Yeah, I do think it's a good point, Marie. I think that a good point for you, too, because a lot of your classmates at Central are products of K-8s. They come to you from the Catholic system, from the Lutheran system, and so they do have very firm beliefs about that process, as well as their parents. So we already have, I don't know what we have in the area, I would guess between 1,000 and 1,500 kids currently in a K-8 structure in our area. And so you don't have to go very far to take a look at these. You have it's not here tonight, but you've got a fellow here that was a principal of a K-8, Bill Schnaden. And so we do have a lot of experience. How that fits into the Davenport system, however, is a whole different ballgame, and that's where it takes study, how you make that happen. We have 2 K-8s currently. We've got a K-8 sitting right across from an elementary school, which to me is kind of strange, just on its face, that we have that situation. So I look at that all the time and wonder how that could be done differently. But if we don't do an ad hoc committee, then again, I've said this at the last board meeting, it's one of these things that just kind of go out into the ether and we never see it again. So I'm going to vote for an ad hoc committee just because at least it gets us going someplace. And those can be expanded to include all the kids we want, all the folks in the community we want, all the staff we want. Yeah, it limits it to 3 board members, but that doesn't mean it's a 3-person committee. So.
Anything else? Director Crumity.
I'm just curious, Mr. President. So from here, as Bill mentioned, where would we go with something like this? I mean, what would be our next steps? Do we bring it back to the agenda committee, or how do we proceed?
It would have to go back to the agenda committee. There cannot be a vote on this tonight. I think there are a lot of questions, but that would be the next step, and it would probably be brought to the board as a motion to establish an ad hoc committee. Because right now we do not have any ad hoc committees. We haven't had any for quite some time. And the last request that we had was probably 6 or 7 years ago, that I recall, to establish an ad hoc committee. So I think that, well, I'll leave it at that. Is that sufficient? Okay. Director DeFau.
A suggestion, if it's the consensus of the board that this is a decision that would probably not be made to be implemented in the next school year, or that would not directly affect our budget conversations this year for the next school year, I would suggest that we table the discussion or the creation of the ad hoc committee until we have put next year's budget to rest. It's just, in my mind, will complicate that conversation, because it's not going to have any bearing on what we do next year. I don't know how it could.
One of the things that I had thought about earlier was the process, because we have specific processes that we have to follow with timelines and everything else, especially if we were going to modify a school. And those are significant, meaning we need to get that process back out and examine it. It's not as simple as the board just saying, hey, let's have a K-8. It doesn't work that simply. The RAC last year was asked to look at a variety of budget items. And I want to make sure that a committee like this will not be getting into things maybe that it doesn't want to. Another thing that we have to think about is, who does this committee report to? If it's an ad hoc committee of the board, it will report to the board. It would have no more than 3 board members. There would be some accountability, meaning reporting, things like that. There are just a number of things that have to be thought through. So I appreciate your comments, Director DeFau, with respect to timing as well, because clearly, there's a lot with respect to budget that's going to occur in the next 2 months and in the next 5 months. So we have to be sensitive to the interactions between those two issues. However, to move forward, I would be curious what the board's thoughts are with respect to consensus in terms of moving forward with an ad hoc committee at some point in time so that we can properly put it into the agenda. And I'd like to just come around the table.
May I have a moment just to respond to what Nikki had said?
Sure.
Good, thank you. So I've been bringing this particular thing up for about 2 years now, perhaps 2.5 years, and we had the administration briefly look at this and come back with a recommendation saying that they didn't think it would fit into the Davenport system. I don't necessarily agree with that recommendation. I'm not sure that it was, in my opinion, looked at in enough detail. And I don't hear, and I have not seen, any other recommendations that are going to come to the kind of money we're talking about. And yes, this wouldn't be this year, but isn't this year that we have to deal with? And when do you start studying things that are like this? Because what you're going to be looking at instead this year is looking at cutting meat. Because if you're going to take the kind of cuts that we have to have, then we're going to have to look at taking a hit in all those areas I mentioned previously. So at what point do you start studying alternatives where you can try to avoid some of those things? Instead of just going marching straight ahead without looking at anything other than taking the hit and starting to cut staff and those things that we're going to have to do. When do you set the time aside to do these things? Is it always roll it on down the line, or do you actually try to pursue something different? And right now, we need some leadership on some of these things. Thank you.
Another comment that I wanted to make is that the board can't discuss everything, and it can't study everything. We recently held a workshop where we established some priorities, and my hope is that the board has some fidelity with respect to looking at those things and examining those things and considering those things that it considers to be part of its priorities. And so I just urge the board to be careful. Leadership doesn't always mean studying everything. So I still want to get a sense for where the board is. Bill, you're in favor of the ad hoc committee?
Yes, I'm in favor of the ad hoc committee or a substitute motion that would give us a different path forward that might be a district-wide committee or whatever it might be, but definitely an entity that would move this idea forward.
Nikki?
I don't believe that an ad hoc committee of the board is required. I think that, again, the majority of the legwork would be done by the administration. I do not have the same recollection of Director Sherwood that the superintendent has ever made a recommendation to us not to consider K-8s as a model of curriculum delivery. What I want to ensure, again, is that we're not muddying the immediate conversation. I understand to a degree your point that perhaps if we decided we were going to make a decision about K-8s, that might influence decisions made this year. But I don't know that I believe that the outcome is as concrete as you might imagine. I want to stay focused on what's at hand and what we have to wrestle with now. And that's the budget reduction of $3 to $4 million.
Thank you. Director Snyder.
I don't necessarily know if we need an ad hoc committee for this, but I do think we need some form of organization to sort of keep the train on the track, so to speak, and keep the conversation going in the right direction. And I do think it's something that should be looked at because, as you said, we can't look at everything. But as a board, I think we're obligated to look at as much as we can, especially the things that are as blatantly successful in some areas, I think are definitely things that we do need to look at.
Director Cromedy.
Yeah, I'm not so sure it needs to be an ad hoc committee either. District committee, some type of district committee I feel very comfortable with. And like Jamie has just indicated, I think we as a board have an obligation to look at different types of things that are going on that perhaps would save us some dollars and also assist us with better student achievement. Again, if you take a look across our district and look at our schools, they look pretty much alike. We staff them alike. We have in some of our schools maybe a little extra help, but we have our class sizes and we have that policy. And I'm not so sure that we shouldn't be differentiating more within our district. And I would hope that if we do have a district committee, we look not only at K-8s, but other structures that may save us dollars and may do a better job.
Director Kluhl.
Well, I agree with Director DeFau in terms of timeliness. I think that while I encourage this kind of discussion, I think that doing it at the present time would be confusing to the public. As I said before, I would really appreciate having this information, not only about K through 8, but any other variation, as Adam has talked about, that might be good education for our students. Concerned about the role of governance and the board. I think the board has a role to request information of this sort from administration. I think the board has some very important things to do, not that this is unimportant, but I think this kind of work can be directed, and we can then have a discussion either amongst ourselves or at the community level. But I would like to see the information come from administration before we do any kind of an ad hoc board.
Director Dickman.
I'm certainly intrigued by the idea of K-8s. I can't say I know any of the information about achievement or anything like that, but I would be interested in finding out. My only area of concern would be that if we are going to have school models that are very different from within the district, that's going to open up the boundary issue and the enrollment issue, the open enrollment issue.
Thank you. And I will say that when I look at our responsibilities, generally in governance and in finance, and thinking about our priorities, I think we have a lot on our plate, especially the next 5 months. And the decisions that the board is going to make, I think, are going to be challenging. So in general, I support getting the information as well. I do believe from a governance perspective, it feels like it makes more sense to me to ask the administration for the information in some manner. So what I'll do is think about all of this. I'll put it together. I'll take it to the agenda committee, and we'll see what happens, and we'll let the board know what direction we're moving. Is there any additional discussion on this?
Would you clarify for me then? I guess the agenda committee has what power in this regard?
The agenda committee sets the agenda for all meetings. It's established. It establishes what will be discussed, what will be voted on, when.
Well,
at
I
which meeting.
understand that, but
Okay.
is that what you're saying is that the agenda committee might decide to pigeonhole this and it wouldn't come back to us?
I'm saying that I don't know what you mean by the use of pigeonhole, and I don't even know if that's an appropriate term to use in this discussion. What are you trying to get at?
Well, at some point, will there be a vote on this idea, or are we saying that may be down the road for months, or?
This board does not have any specific requirement for a vote on an idea at any specific time. If you're asking for that, I'm not going to make a commitment on behalf of the agenda committee that it will establish a specific time for a vote on something that it hasn't discussed. If you'd like to have something like that, we can have that discussion at a meeting that's actually going to come up within the next 2 months to talk about the board protocol. And does it mean, for instance, that whenever something is asked for by a board member, that it be voted on, for instance, the next meeting? So I'm not sure what you're asking for there, Bill, or Director Sherwood.
Well, you just had said that you'll let us know what's going to happen with this after the agenda meeting.
That's correct.
Wondered what that meant as far as ultimate outcomes.
And I can't predict it. All I'm saying is that I will take it to the agenda committee, and I'll let the board know what the agenda committee's decision is. Any other discussion? Okay, thank you. Move on to administrative reports.
None, Mr. President.
Thank you. Are there any board reports or requests? I've got some board requests. Are there any board reports? Director Dickman.
All right, I'll go first. Many of the members of the board were able to attend the Iowa Association of School Board Conference this past Wednesday and Thursday. I know that I personally learned a lot. I'm still processing a lot of it. There were forums and discussions on all sorts of things like how to prevent bullying and how to make best use of our funding, and using legislative advocacy to further the interests of our district. I think one of my favorite things was actually the headline speaker, Dr. Zhao. And he was very humorous and also very insightful, in my opinion, in discussing our educational model. And there's a lot of comparisons, obviously, with different varying successful educational models. And I very much enjoyed his thoughts on how it's really the creativity and not flattening the creativity of our students and really encouraging them to find new ways to be able to create their own future and to become the new entrepreneurs that we're going to need, that so many of the jobs that we're trying to prepare our students for, the kind of jobs that we have now are going to go away, and there's going to be new ones that we can't even imagine. And I'm glad that we got the opportunity to hear that and to consider that as we move forward as a board.
Thank you. Anything else? Director Snyder.
I too was privileged enough to attend that convention. As a new board member, there was a lot of things that were helpful to me. I got to attend two, in fact, I'll just tell you, it was called a boot camp of school finance, and it was absolutely as exhilarating as it sounds. School finance is so complex that 2.5 hour classes just barely touched on finance issues. But there was a huge variety of other topics, from the climate in our schools, safety, security, bullying, as Director Dickman had talked about, technology, how we're using technology. There was just a huge a range of classes and workshops and discussions that we could get involved in, to whatever we were most interested in, or we thought would that we could bring back and be of most help to our board with. And it was very well done, and I think as a new board member, it was critical for me to be there.
Director Sherwood.
I just had a question for Art. Was my memory flawed, or did you, in response to a request of mine some months back, perhaps a year back, issue a one-page statement about K-8s?
I did. We had looked at two combinations. I think it was Monroe and Smart, and probably Washington and Sudlow, and I had said that we didn't find any savings in that, but it was a fairly cursory report, but I did, in fact.
Okay, thank you.
Any other reports? Director Kluhl.
Back to the IASB. I was thinking, and it cut me off at 3 minutes because I could go on this, but I'm. Why do I have to take this grief? I don't know. I was thinking, though, professional development. I think sometimes, teachers probably have professional development that is really inspiring, and you go through the professional development and you say, I'm going to go and apply this at school the next day, and you get tied up with lesson planning and issues, and you never quite get around to it. I've gone to ISB conventions now for a decade, and never fails, you have a really inspiring speaker. And the issue that came up this time was creativity. Well, what's frustrating is that oftentimes then we come back, and now we're talking about the certified budget. We're going to be talking about how to cut $4 million this year, next year, and the year after. So all of that good stuff gets lost somewhere. So next steps, creativity. Dr. Zhao said very clearly, we're killing creativity every day in our schools. And I see a slight nod from Adam. I think you're online with this. But, as we fill in blanks, as we ask students to give answers to questions, it's the wrong question. We should be asking the students to give the questions. What are the questions? What are you thinking about? How can that happen? What can you do? So we're going to be having, the board has established 2 goals for the next couple of years for the board to take ownership of. One of those is deal with the impacts of poverty, and the second is happiness or climate in the schools. Some of us are concerned that happiness is being driven out in a No Child Left Behind Act culture. And along with that No Child Left Behind Act is killing creativity. So we're going to be having a committee of the whole meeting. The agenda has to set that up yet. We had it scheduled, I think, at one point, and we postponed it. But we're going to talk about climate and happiness in our schools. So creativity is something that we, I hope, as a board, are going to bring forward and talk about. Not that we can dismiss the requirement that we have No Child Left Behind Act. We have federal and state requirements that we have to do. It doesn't mean that we can't do better than that. Because if this board is unable to make that happen, nobody will. Legislators are not going to bring creativity to the classrooms. It's going to be your board that does that, if anybody does it at all. So those are the big issues that I think are important. That's what I brought back, and that's what I hope this board will follow up on.
Director Crumwitty.
Well, I have happy news, Director Kluhl.
Appreciate it.
As your delegate to the IASB Delegate Assembly, we were very successful, and our voice was heard at the Delegate Assembly. As you all know, that I had brought to you 2 resolutions, one that we have talked about for a few years on this board, and that's funding equity, and the other one, which came out of the Legislative Advocacy Committee, had to do with increased funding for early childhood literacy. The funding equity resolution, there were 4 or 5 other districts that had submitted a resolution very similar to the one that we were presenting from Davenport. So the great news about the funding equity is that that passed with flying colors, and hopefully that'll be, it didn't come through as one of the high priority issues, but it is there, and hopefully that'll be brought forward to our legislators. And I hope that every one of us take the opportunity to talk to our legislators about it, because, folks, we have 169 districts in the same boat that we're in, and not all of those districts realize that they're having this situation. And so now they're just learning, and it was just really fun to watch that pass almost unanimously. The second one was had to do with second grade literacy, or pre-K through second grade literacy. I believe that's the way it's written. And I had worked with Mary Gannon and Emily Piper, who is the lobbyist for IASB, for about a week before the conference, and they gave me a couple of different options as to how to present that, and I was pretty nervous about the whole thing. But to make a long story short, I took it to the Legislative Resolutions Committee, which I was appointed to just prior to the convention, met them at the breakfast, and they jumped on board and said, this is a great resolution. Why don't we present it as a Legislative Resolutions Committee proposal? And so that's what happened. We did. And out of the entire delegate assembly, I think there's 340 some, 1 negative vote. So good news for us, and hopefully for kids across this state.
Great. Thank you very much. Adam, you missed your opportunity earlier for any reports. Do you have anything to report?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask that because I was thinking about it. And the past week I was gone from school quite a lot on religious convention trip, and then also just other school requirements. If my other student school board members had been here, they probably could have told you more about the school and what's happening. Something I would like to ask, it came up at an IS3 meeting today. I'm trying to get them here to present to you about what it is, so I'm not going to go into that, but they were just wondering if the school board could clear up what's the policy on painting schools, because we would really like to paint murals, artwork, other things on the walls at Centrals, because something we constantly hear the students complain about is how the walls look bland, and they're so tired of the white color. Because how can you enjoy the day when you walk down hallways that look like they were painted for a prison, where it's the same thing and nothing stimulating? So we've tried putting up decals and banners, but we would really like to just paint the walls with artwork and colors and something exciting. And we were wondering, because we've been told we can't do that, and we're told we can do that. and we have no idea what it is anymore, and we don't know who to trust. So if the school board has a policy on that, it'd be very much appreciated.
Thank you very much. Before I talk about the board request, I do want to say that Dr. Zhao talked about a few things. Creativity was one. Another one that he talked about was greatness. And I do believe that it's up to the board, as Director Kluhl said, to move the district in these types of areas that these are hard things to do. They're cultural issues. So I look forward to the board working on some of those areas. I'll go on to the board requests. First, from Director DeFau, date of request 11/25, agenda item or information request. Update on the District of Distinction recommendation to create a Fine Arts Academy. What is the status of that concept following our conversation last summer? When will this come before the board for further discussion? Director Snyder, 11/25/13, agenda item. Look at going to digital board packets rather than having an employee hand deliver packets to our doors. That is a huge waste of resources and paper. Electronic reports can also be more easily filed for future reference. Director Snyder, 11/25/2013, agenda item. Take a look at utilizing the Clarity for Schools technology assessment. This is free to our district and is put into motion by our local AEA. This is a free, comprehensive tool used to determine where we are with technology and what our needs are. Director Snyder, 11/25/13, agenda item. Further discuss what came up during goal-setting sessions and look at an extracurricular activity requirement for incoming freshmen to further encourage added exposure to more things. Studies show that kids involved in other things do better overall in their education. Thank you very much for all of the requests and reports. With that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. This meeting is adjourned.